Good morning and welcome to our Zoom worship service. So now let's pause and take just a moment to acknowledge that the land on which our homes and our church were built was not uninhabited when European settlers arrived here with their ideas of conquest and ownership. For those of us who live in Moscow, Pullman, or other nearby communities, we live on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Shitshumsh, called the Coeur d'Alene. If you're joining us from another place, I encourage you to discover who inhabited or moved through the place where you now live in the times before colonization and genocide, and where they are now. We take a moment to pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. And now let's join our voices together for the words of welcome, our unison chalice lighting, and our sung affirmation. Whoever you are, wherever you've come from, whatever your beliefs, whomever you love, and however bumpy your life's journey, know that you are welcome here. We're hoping that everyone here has a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together.
Hi, we're the Stewarts. I'm Lena.
I'm Juliet.
And I'm Lex. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung in every land by every tongue.
This morning, we're in the midst of the Jewish festival of lights known as Hanukah. The story of Hanukah is the story of a people under siege and a miracle that kept their sacred flame burning. In the year 167 BCE, the temple in Jerusalem was co-opted by the Greeks and used to worship the cult of Zeus. A small band of guerrilla fighters known as the Maccabees rose up, and against all odds, they reclaimed the temple for the Jews. They relit the holy lamp, and though they had only enough oil for one day, the flame lasted for 8. For us as Unitarian Universalists, Hanukkah offers an opportunity to delve into an important question. When things happen that desecrate or destabilize our lives, things that break our heart, undermine our faith in humanity, or in some other way knock us for a loop, how do we recover and carry on? In times when we feel under siege, weighed down by the pain and suffering in the wider world as well as our own, we retell the Hanukkah story in solidarity with our Jewish friends and neighbors. While not all of us share their faith, we do share a commitment to affirming life in the presence of death, love in the presence of hate, and peace in the presence of violence. And this is the purpose of religious community. So we're going to begin our service this morning with the video of my colleague, the Reverend Joanna Lubkin, who is Jewish and Unitarian Universalist, lighting the Hanukkah menorah.
Good morning. Last night, families around the world lit Hanukkah candles, lighting 3 candles for the 3rd night of the festival. So I bring this morning the practice of lighting candles to this Unitarian Universalist congregation, where many of us, like myself, have a Jewish background or want to honor the Jewish holidays. The rabbis of the Talmud, well, they argued a lot, and one of the things they argued over was how one should light the Hanukkah lights. One rabbi and his school of thought thought that each night you should add an extra light, that on the first night you light 1 candle or lamp, and the second night you light 2, and so on. Another school of thought said, no, you should start with 8 and get fewer and fewer as it goes on. So from 8 candles and lamps or lights to 7 and 6. Well, as you may have guessed, the school of thought about adding light won over time, that's what we do. And the rationale is that we should be increasing light. We should be increasing joy in the world. We should be bringing more light to darkness. I'm taking that to heart this year, that in a year where things have been hard, let's add light. Let's add joy. Let's add wonder. So whatever that looks like for you, may this be a season of increasing light and joy, warmth and connection during long nights. I'll sing the Hanukkah blessings in Hebrew, the first 2 blessings over the candle, and the third for the first time in a year where one does something. And since this is the first Sunday this year where we're lighting Hanukkah candles together, we'll sing that one as well. And following that, we'll say the English translation. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Hanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim hahem ba'azman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'hechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Blessed are you, source of all, who brings moments of holiness to our lives through the ritual of lighting the Hanukkah lights. Blessed are you, source of all, who brings our attention to miracles from ages past to this very moment. Blessed are you, source of all, who has given us life, sustained us, and brought us to this very moment. And let us say, Amen. Happy Hanukkah.
Let's join now in singing together Hashivenu.
Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Venashuva, Venashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh, Yamenu kekedem, Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Hashivenu,
For our meditation this morning, I've adapted one published by the Jewish Meditation of Brooklyn. So I invite you to take a few deep breaths and center down. When the Maccabees returned to the temple, they found much that was precious to them had been destroyed. Yet they did not give up hope. Instead, they searched through the rubble and found light. They excavated a place that could hold holiness again. In this time of remembering, let us look into our own hearts and ask, what needs repair? What requires renewal? What or who brings light to my life? What can I do to kindle and cultivate that light? What is holding me back? What miracles have I experienced during difficult times? What actions might I take to bring about miracles in my life or in the lives of people I love or in the lives even of strangers? How can I hold and hold on to a sense of goodness and hope on days when it feels like everything is falling apart? Let's rest in these questions together in silence for just a moment. Our reading this morning is by Rabbi Shea Held, Lighting Up the Darkness, Hanukkah as a Spiritual Practice. Think for a moment about the central ritual act that marks this holiday. It is winter now, the days are getting shorter and shorter, and attendantly the nights are getting longer and longer. Pesach, Passover, and Sukkot, the harvest festival known as the Feast of Tabernacles, begin in the middle of the Jewish month when the moon is full, but Hanukkah is different. It begins on the 25th of the month when the moon has all but completely disappeared. We are in one of the darkest periods of one of the darkest months of the year. All around us is darkness, and what do? We light a fire. Not a bonfire, but a small fire. Now one, now another, and so forth for 8 nights. In other words, we do not pretend to be the sun, but only stars. We do not bring an end to darkness, but soften its effects. The soul of man is the lamp of God, the book of Proverbs tells us. What this means is that ultimately our task is not to light candles, but to be candles. We have the potential to be the bits of light that help bring God back into a world gone dark. As the Sefas Emes puts it in discussing Hanukkah, a human being is created to light up this world. So as we retell this ancient story, as we reflect on the meaning of this holiday, we find it resonates because it centers on these acts of desecration, desacralization, disrespect, damage that's been done. And there's been a lot of that sort of desecration happening that we've been, that I've been noticing in the news. Most literally, there was vandalism earlier, just a few days ago, at the Anne Frank Memorial in Boise. Somebody put stickers with swastikas on them and the words, "We are everywhere," all over the memorial, including on Anne Frank's diary itself. We're also in the midst of this so-called controversy over the election results, which to me feels like a desecration of our democracy. And here in Moscow, we have the move by Unmask Moscow to converge on Tri-State. Now, Tri-State isn't exactly holy ground, but the employees there and the other customers were put in danger. So it was a violation or a desecration of their personhood. Now, these kinds of acts of desecration, of violation, aren't unusual. I would venture a guess that everyone has at some point in their life been on the receiving end of unkindness, of harm, of desecration, whether through misunderstandings or clumsiness, betrayal, somebody being reactive with us. So we know what it feels like. We know in our bones that everyone deserves to feel completely safe and loved and free and supported in being who they are. We also know it's the nature of being human that when we relate to each other, we do so imperfectly. And we're impacted by violence and the violation of our personhood, whether it's physical violence or emotional violence like abuse or bullying, or spiritual abuse, which includes attempts to control or manipulate. Here's the thing, we've all been on the giving end too. When I introduce joys and sorrows, I always say that people are unbearably beautiful, and so they are, but you know what? We people, we can also kind of be jerks. We can be bullies, we can be ignorant. And when I'm talking about people here, I'm not talking them, those folks out here. I mean us too. We've all been on the giving end. We've all caused harm. It's part of being human. The church that I served before I came here to the Palouse, so my first settled ministry, I did some things that caused harm, and in particular, I want to tell you the story, and it goes back to joys and sorrows again. So, like us, they lit candles of joy and sorrow every Sunday, but unlike the ritual in our church, it was treated more like an extended announcement period, and it would often go on for a long time. And the worship committee asked me to get a handle on it, and I was a new minister, and so I went to some of my colleagues and I said, what do I do?" And they said, "Oh, take it away, and have people write in a book what they want to light candles for, and then you read all of the candles." And I was a new minister, so I said, "Oh, okay," and we tried it, and it was not wildly popular. That's actually a huge understatement. It caused a ginormous conflict in the congregation. And I've since learned that, liturgy quite literally translates as the work of the people. So what I did was really a violation. And even though I backtracked, even though we went back and put in place all of the things that were important to them, a lot of those relationships were irreparably damaged. I still remember having a conversation with one person who said, when you came and started making these changes, it was like an alien came into my sacred space and started messing it up. So we make mistakes, and repair isn't always possible. When it is, it often takes a while. So I found myself reflecting, what do we do when we're the ones who have done the desecrating? And I think the first thing is to embrace humility, to breathe through that natural defensive reaction that I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't mean to do that, so that we can circle back around to a compassionate response. I also try to remember that being held accountable is a gift. It's really risky to say to someone, "What you did hurt my feelings, and this is why." So if we can receive that not as an attack, but as a desire to be in relationship, then we can validate their feelings, we can listen, and we can be a little easier on ourselves, because the truth of it is we all make mistakes. The mistakes we make don't impact our fundamental worth as human beings. It's only that deliberately choosing not to acknowledge our mistakes and learn and grow and do better, that's my definition of evil. So that's when it does impact not our fundamental worth, but it impacts our spirit. Now, when we're the ones who feel desecrated, who feel violated, I wonder what helps us reclaim our own sense of goodness and worth. I circle back round again and again to the importance of having good boundaries. And of course, the difference between boundaries and barriers is barriers say, if you can't treat me the way I want, I don't want to be in relationship with you at all. The intention behind boundaries is to establish relationship in a safe way. Now, often people experience the setting of boundaries as the creation of a barrier, as rejection, as critique. But that's why I started with how we receive this kind of feedback, how important it is to receive this kind of feedback with humility, to receive it as a gift. I think the other thing we need to do when our boundaries have been violated, when we've been harmed, is to surround ourselves with health. One of the reasons I do what I do is because I know human beings benefit from having supportive friends, from having a healthy and loving community around them. There's also a practice, because rarely is it all one-sided, right? Most of our conflicts, most of our instances where harm is done, it goes in both directions. So there's a practice of taking appropriate responsibility, but no more. And that practice for me consists of asking myself 3 questions. First, what's true? What's in tune with my own self-understanding? And those are things that I need to let in and integrate and learn from, to learn and grow. Then I ask myself, what in this situation hurts disproportionately because it aggravates old wounds from old stories? I have to see and notice those hurts and self-soothe and be gentle with myself, because that's part of being human too. And then the third question I ask, what's not mine? What's projection? What's an unwarranted attack? And those things I choose not to let into my heart. So if you're called upon to engage in these practices, what I want you to do is hear my voice in your head, in your heart, in your consciousness, your subconscious, whatever, wherever you want to hear it, saying you are enough and more than enough. You deserve kindness and joy, freedom and satisfaction in your life. You deserve rest and fun and inner peace. You are beautiful and perfectly imperfect, just the way you are. You are sacred, by which I mean you deserve respect and love, now and always. In our world, there are responses to these desecrations that we've seen in the last week or two. You know, if we go back to the original story, what did the Maccabees do? What did the Maccabees do? They picked up brooms. They went to work. They relit the light. And this is what we do as well. In Boise, citizens converged on the Anne Frank Memorial, and they brought their menorahs with them. And together they all lit their menorahs, re-sanctifying, re-sacralizing that place, showing solidarity. Donations have been flooding in, including one from Hamdi Ulukaya, who's the founder of Chobani Yogurt. He's given $20,000 to the Anne Frank Memorial in Boise. In terms of the desecration of our democracy, what we see is the courts are rejecting the suits. I feel like one of the most important things we can do right now is express kindness and support to elected officials and election officials who are being harassed locally. The Moscow City Council, the Idaho Secretary of State. We're hearing reports of people being attacked for doing their jobs. So I think we need to make sure that the people who are being harmed know that the vast majority of us are with them and are in support of them and believe them and want them to continue to do their jobs. In terms of tri-state, people are shopping. Supposedly there weren't any parking spots left yesterday. You can also buy charity gift cards there at Tri-State, and those cards will be distributed through local food banks to people who need basic household items. In other words, when things have been violated, desecrated, what we do is we pick ourselves up. We clean up the mess as best we can, and we turn toward kindness and generosity. And we do that over and over and over again in the course of our lives. See, we human beings, we're meaning makers, which means we're the ones who get to decide what is sacred. And we get to decide what is sacred, and we make that decision because what is sacred is really just what is lifted up and held in love as precious. So to those who feel defiled or have felt defiled or ever have felt defiled, we just turn and we say, you are holy. You are loved. And we say it over and over and over again until everyone feels it and everyone lives it. So be it, and so may it be. Let's sing now together, Light One Candle.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children. with thanks that the light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand. But light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering the pain we learned so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in, that anger won't tear us apart. And light one candle to bring us together with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly? We keep it alive in that flame. What's the commitment to those who have died when we cry out they've not died in vain? Have we come this far always believing that justice would somehow prevail? This is the burden and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears.
Our closing reading is Hanukah by Reverend Lynn Unger. Come down from the hills, declare the fighting done. Be bold, declare victory even when the temple is wrecked and the tyrants have not retreated, only coiled back like a snake prepared to strike again. Come down. Try to remember a life gentled by daily acts of domestic faith, the pot set to boil, the bed made up, the table set in calm expectation that when the sun sets, we will still be here. Come down and settle. Unlearn the years of hiding. Light fires that can be seen for miles, that dance and spark and warm the frozen marrow. Set lamps in the window. Declare your presence, your loyalties, the truths for which you do not expect to have to die. It would take a miracle, you say, to carve such a solid life out of the shell of fear. I say, you are the stuff from which such miracles are made. Let's join now in our sung benediction, There is a Love.
There is a love
Let's extinguish our chalices together and say these words to embody the flame. We extinguish our chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Go forth then, knowing that you are beloved, you are sacred, and you have the capacity to shine light in the darkness that surrounds us. Claim your power, claim your goodness, and go in peace